that brings us now to item 5, the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan. So I would invite staff to the table. So Helen, Teresa and Rowan, thank you very much indeed. Are there any remarks or introductory comments that you'd like to make?
Yes, we do have a PowerPoint that we'd like to quickly go through if we can get that set up. Come on. All right. So thanks very much. Many of you around this table will remember when picking up the rubbish and taking it to the tip was the only thing council did around waste management, and things have moved on quite considerably since then, and we have a much more sophisticated approach, and we have much higher expectations from our community in terms of waste management, recycling and resource recovery. So this is the plan to achieve that, and this plan is also a statutory requirement, so we are required to have this plan in place. Come on. Christchurch, of course, doesn't manage its waste in a vacuum. We are part of a global waste management sector. We are part of a national system for managing waste and recycling, and we work very closely with our neighbours. So that context has to be taken into account. We also want to give you a brief overview of what the makeup of the total waste to landfill is here in Christchurch, and then get into the plan itself. Right, so that international context. So production and management of waste is a global challenge. And the old model of simply shipping rubbish and contaminated recycling material offshore for someone else to manage is changing quite a lot. So in March 2018, China brought in the National Sword Policy that introduced thresholds for contamination in recycling material. So that stopped us and many other countries shipping highly contaminated materials through to China, particularly paper and plastics. And in January 2021, the Basel Convention, which is again about movement of waste across boundaries, is going to limit contaminated material and plastics and certain plastics from being shipped across boundaries without specific permission. So in essence, the markets are getting smaller. The requirements in terms of the quality of the material are getting higher, and the prices are either going down or in fact the returns are negative, so we have to pay people to take some recyclable material away, which is still considerably cheaper than taking it to landfill. Now, governments around the world have been responding to all of these changes, and our government is no different. So the Ministry for the Environment has set up this national task force, and they have a program of work. Ross Trotter, who's the manager of solid waste and resource recovery, is not here today because he's not well, but he is closely engaged with a number of these work streams so that we are both contributing and keeping close to the action in terms of finding out what's going on. So this program creates quite a lot of opportunity for Christchurch and for Canterbury, but also sort of prolongs the uncertainty while we don't know the outcome of some of these programs. So there is some uncertainty and some period of transition before these things will come into effect. And there's a 124 million investment announced just recently in terms of onshore recycling facilities, but we don't know what those will be or where those will be yet. But there's a considerable amount of investment coming. So we will continue to work with central government on these and work with our neighbouring councils on looking into those opportunities. So just a reminder about the total waste to landfill. So you'll see from this, it's a bit hard to see the key at the bottom here, but in essence, the curbside and our public transfer stations is only around 30% of the total waste that's going through to Cape Valley. So that's relatively small. Then we have around 40% from other transfer stations, which is largely commercial waste. There's a small slice there from other territorial authorities, and then there's a whole lot of special waste, so that's hazardous materials, asbestos containing waste, and that sort of thing. And I want to, at this point, I'll hand across to Teresa to go through the key challenges and the program, and then across to Rowan to look at some of the more detailed concrete actions that are proposed. Thanks.
Thanks, Helen. So just a quick summary of the key challenges as they're written up there. The first one around our recycling systems. Helen noted a couple of minutes ago that there is a significant amount of central government investment going into this challenge. It's not just us that have the challenge, but certainly COVID-19 was a reminder of the reliance that we have for our recycling systems on our international markets at the moment. The second key challenge that we've identified is around the services and expectations of residents, and we've had a number of reminders of that recently. Even the single-use plastic bags at checkouts is just a simple reminder. With this, we need to again work with central government on waste minimisation initiatives and opportunities. And the third one is around the products themselves. So although we do provide recycling and organic collection, many products and components that still have value are still going into our landfills. We have a system-wide challenge at the moment around our resources, and solutions are required to support us reusing and recovering materials. We also note they're the three key challenges that we've identified, and also although we started the development of this in lockdown, we have been able to engage with a number of internal and external stakeholders as we've worked through these challenges and then developing the plan. So that the other considerations is the transition challenges. Helen's noted the central government programme. We need to understand the impact of that to us. Sometimes we need to work alongside them, and decisions that are made at central government level can really support us. The direct linkage of consumption and waste with climate change mitigation, it's a strategic priority for our council, and we cannot underestimate the linkage of consumption with and waste with climate change. It's significant when you look at a consumption-based footprint. And also around climate change adaptation, particularly around sea level rise, closed landfills. So in terms of the plan, we have this high-level vision around Otatahi, Christchurch being a sustainable city working towards zero waste and a circular economy, and three goals that, again, we've developed alongside a group of stakeholders. For everyone to have access to recycling, resource recovery and waste management services. The second one is about understanding that reducing and minimise waste is our responsibility as council. We do have responsibilities, but also it's understanding that businesses and individuals do as well. And the third goal is around valuing resources to minimise those going to landfill and support our vision of moving towards zero waste. Just a really quick one in here. When Helen started the presentation, she reminded us that in the olden days we would have provided as council a rubbish collection service. This is a version of a waste pyramid, and the key thing here, and sorry 'cause it's quite difficult to read, you'll be able to see it in the plan, is that we're trying to move ourselves up the pyramid, and the further up you move, the more you move away from having disposal at the bottom, and increasingly you look at resources being recovered and reused. So that's really a tenet that sits behind the plan, and that's what we're aiming towards. We want to be as high up in the pyramid as possible. I won't read these objectives, but we have set these objectives as a high-level mechanism to support our action plan. So the aim of these is we will measure the action plan and our achievements against it against these 5 key objectives. And in terms of how we're going to achieve it, I've mentioned the action plan. Rowan will provide a high-level summary of it. That's critical. It's immediate focused. It needs to be reviewed every year, so it's quite clear a set of actions that are due this year. The second one, a service delivery review, will be initiated next month. and that will look at the cost effectiveness of the resource recovery services that we provide. And the third one around regional focus is a reminder, Helen again mentioned it already, we're not in isolation here. This is something we need to work together on, and really we probably look to the future about waste minimisation plans not being developed on behalf of one council but a broader collaboration to achieve it. So I'm now going to hand over to Rowan, who will talk about the action plan.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. So generally speaking, we've split the action plan up into 5 key themes, and so that really focuses on 3 resource recovery streams, so that's organics, recycling and hazardous materials. And then we've talked about 2 themes around leadership and also education and communications. I think it's important to note, and we presented to Council previously on this, that we're looking to review the action plan annually, and that's just to take into account the significant market uncertainty that exists at the moment, and I guess providing an agile plan so that we can adapt to those changing national and global situations. The way we've structured the plan, if you do see it in the document, we've kind of laid out actions across the first 3 years, and that takes us up to our next LTP, our next long-term plan, but also the end of the majority of our major contracts. So what we're signalling here is we've got some things to do over the next 3 years that will really set the course for our long-term vision, and we're kind of, although it's a 6-year plan and we are working towards targets all the way into the 6th year, we really want to sort of set it up so that we've got an annual plan up to the next LTP, and then those additional goals to get us towards that vision. To drill down into some of, I guess, the 5 themes, I might just run through a couple of examples. So around the first theme, diversion of organics, we're looking at, right now actually, we've got a piece of work out in the market which is looking at an innovative new collection system for the inner city. And so that's looking at basically upgrading our existing bagged collection system, but I guess a key part of that is including organics in that collection system. So, we're looking at a significant urban growth and residential growth within the central city, but we're also looking at those hospitality and commercial premises that generate food waste. So looking at capturing that organic waste which is currently going to landfill through those numbers, I guess, presented earlier. Another key part around the organics will be the Bromley composting plant that we operate, and working out whether we can enhance that facility so that it can operate to that growing demand for organics processing and diversion. Looking at the recyclables, there's some significant impacts there around the waste levy and I guess the cost of disposal, and so we're looking at opportunities there where we can incentivise recycling. Working with the commercial sector, with industry, and also working with our contractors to deliver the most effective recycling system that we can, obviously cognizant of those global markets and the need to develop onshore markets for recycling. Hazardous substances, we've got a number of successful programs out there, and we run regular communications around keeping hazardous substances out of the waste streams. But one that we're really looking to expand upon is the successful batteries collection program. So we're looking at a national program for handheld batteries and hoping that will link into the electronic waste product stewardship scheme that the government have signalled in its work program. The final 2, education and the leadership themes, I guess it's about building on what we already do, but also expanding our scope to work more closely with industry and the commercial sector so that we get a real change. I think, core council service delivery in terms of, what once was collection of refuse and disposal to landfill now is, a 3-bin system, public transfer stations, battery collection program. So we need to expand on all of those. But then we also need to engage with businesses and the commercial producers of waste for them to also expand on their diversion of waste. So really it's around community-based funding for diversion initiatives. It's around the contestable fund through the Canterbury Waste Joint Committee, and it's around a greater level of engagement with the commercial and industrial sector on waste issues. That's probably it for the summary of examples. If you want to advance. For For the plan, we've got five recommendations for you all. I won't drill through each of them because I guess we'll make a decision on them shortly. So I might just go over the timeline, which is the next slide. We're hoping to get your endorsement today and therefore be able to go out to public consultation on the 31st. That's the statutory requirement, is 30 days of public consultation. Then we'll have a hearings panel in mid-September with the final plan approved mid to late October, 21st of October. All going well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much indeed. So I would just draw people's attention to the fact that we've got an updated attachment B, which has been uploaded to the hub as a separate document. That's the updated draft waste management and minimisation plan. Now, does that mean that we need to make a small change to this recommendation rather than just attachment B, just by putting as attached to the minutes? Would that be correct? Yep. So the draft waste management and minimisation plan 2020 as attached to the minutes for consultation. That just tidies that up. All right. Are there any questions on this matter? Pauline.
Yeah, thank you. With the reduction of our recyclable products going overseas, what's the level of that reduction, and are we sending any offshore at the moment at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So we still have strong markets. Well, we still have markets for the majority of the recyclables that we've always exported to international markets. I guess some of the work that we're doing is around safeguarding if those markets fail in the future.
Okay. But hasn't China reduced a lot because of the contamination?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
but is that going somewhere else now?
Yeah. So China previously accepted about 60% of the world's recyclable commodities.
Yeah.
And when they implemented China National Sword, those, I guess, accepted materials had to find other markets. Our material was largely going to other markets in Southeast Asia, and continues to do so.
Okay. And another question in the plan on page 26, and we talk about EcoCentral's feasibility study, and the wording is that it's begun a feasibility study into the future of recycling in Christchurch and parts of Canterbury. But shouldn't we be looking like further than that, like perhaps a whole South Island model, or looking at what we're facing with water these days, Don't you think that's a little bit limited, and even a national option? So, do you think it'd be worth expanding that wording into actually looking further?
Absolutely. I think the point there is that EcoCentral have their current customers, which obviously Christchurch is the majority customer, but also other territorial authorities and commercial individuals, commercial organisations. So their sort of sphere of influence is limited to their capacity at their plant. I guess council, we may look at a more holistic or potentially South Island wide, working in with those national directives around economies of scale.
So council should be running a parallel study into other options as well.
I think we have to consider the options presented by EcoCentral because that is our current system. But where other options exist, and I mean the batteries example is a great comparative. There would be scale in New Zealand for one battery reprocessing plant, so we need to work at that national scale for that particular commodity or that particular product. For each individual product, there will be a balance of the right economy of scale, and that's related to transport and processing efficiency. So I can't kind of second guess the right balance for Christchurch at this point, but that is what we're looking at.
Right. And with the organics in the central city, I mean, looking back to when we were doing the district plan, and I wanted to have a provision there that apparently the rationale that it's not picked up currently is because the trucks can't get into all the cafes and things, there's no room, and I thought there should have been provision for those trucks to get in, but we didn't get that through. So how do you propose to overcome that obstacle to actually collect it?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've got is we've got a consultant appointed at the moment to run an options study for the central city waste collection system. And so that's everything refuse, recycling and organics.
Yeah.
And so what they're going to look at is all the different technologies available to collect those waste streams. I guess the scope that we've given them is to present us with options so that we've got a level of service parity with our residential collections. So if you live in the suburbs, you can have a 3-bin system. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to dispose of or divert the same materials if you live in the inner city or have a business in the inner city.
No, that's good. And just one last question that I'm getting asked all the time, because I got a gold star on my yellow bin. Are we bringing that back because people want to play that game?
Yeah,
Is
so
it still going?
The Gold Star program, the curbside auditing program is continuing.
Yep.
Yep. So we've obviously still got some significant issues with contamination out there, so we're working through those. Yeah.
So you're only doing it sort of area by area, so people have got to watch out for a leaflet in the letterbox and that says they'll be audited sometime over the next couple of weeks or something.
Yeah, at the moment we're running it based on priorities. So where we're receiving contamination, we are running a curbside auditing and education program.
Well, that's good to know, because people are really keen, and I find it was really helpful, because talking to people about what you do and you don't do to get a gold star, and it's amazing what people don't know still about what to put in that yellow bin.
So we have got 2 or 3 other initiatives in terms of communication and education and competitions to get that recycling message out there and to get greater uptake.
Great.
And there are some particular markets where we have some challenges. Flats, for example, where the occupants turn over regularly. So we've got some options for ensuring that they get the information every time there's a turnover in tenants.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Aaron and then Jimmy.
Yeah, just 2 questions. First one is the consultation, is that open to all those weird and wonderful people in Christchurch that always have ideas on how to recycle or what they want to recycle, but we always seem to be a closed door, so they email us and go, oh, why doesn't the council do this? Why don't they do that? Is this process open to that?
Yes, indeed. Consultation is a public consultation process, so yes, it's open to everybody.
Because I'm sitting 2 seats down from a tyre shredder that was told it couldn't be done, but it took them a weekend to build a tyre shredder out of an old aeroplane. Health and Safety 101. And then my other question, well, that's good to hear, and hopefully that will grab some media attention for those people to send in those fantastic ideas that Christchurch people do. And the other one is the diversion of recyclable materials away from landfill. Which ones are they? Are they traditional ones, or are we looking at other stuff that could be recycled but we don't? And for me, the key one would be wood. Currently, no wood is recycled, so there's treated and untreated, and you're probably aware that you can get a spray that just sprays on, it tells you which one's which, and if you're really unsure, you can stick it with a little thing that tells you, and it takes seconds. So it's a solvable problem, but we send literally tons of wood to landfill.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the way we've structured it in the plan is that we've obviously got our existing levels of service, which is, the things that you can take to the recycling centres and that can be collected through your curbside collection system. But we've also got a whole set of actions in there around, achieving greater recovery of divertible materials from that system, so that we can get more, timber, electronic waste, all of these things out of the waste stream. We've got, I'm not sure the page, but we've got the waste assessment in there, which shows, the proportion of divertible materials in both the curbside and the transfer station refuse. And so that gives us some really good targets about how can we actually get this 8% of timber that's in the refuse stream out, and provide some, incentive to organisations that want to be innovative in that area. And I think that's where we're moving with this plan, is really encouraging organisations to develop processes for those material streams.
Okay, so we should see some results pretty quickly then.
Would hope to. Yeah.
Thank you. Jimmy.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 questions. First one, based on your presentation, particular focus on action plan themes. One of the key points here, provision of leadership and innovation in the Christchurch waste sector. So at the moment, we have set up the Temporary Waste Joint Committee. The funding actually is encouraging the incentive for all those councils to kind of promote how to minimize those waste. But at the moment, funding, I still don't know. When we set up this funding, the figure $112,000, whether that's sufficient or whether, based on year basis, need to reflect at least inflation rate. The other one, because of this, the new revised, the statutory, the waste minimization management plan. So that's crucial. We need to more promote, encourage community, can feedback to us. So the funding suggests whether we need to consider inflation rate or whether can get some other source of funding, encourage more to promote this project. Second one, I'm still concerned regarding to the consultation, because we mentioned several times, many times, we only focus on the kind of, most of the times focus on the geographic area, but demographic is still very crucial. That's part of the outcome. So this time, whether the youth focus on children and also different ethnic group to be heard. But in moment we set up the multicultural advisory group, and we have regular informed group, and still have a Christchurch multicultural council. Those probably three need to be to inform them. Besides this.
We have the approach that we're taking to consultation, if it's approved today. My understanding is it is a bit different to how we've done it before, and we will be providing one opportunity at Turanga, but we have already put in place, I mean, we're letting people know that we're hoping this is going to happen, for us to come to people. So it's, we would be able to come to multicultural groups or youth groups. So instead of us telling people if they want to consult, they've either got to look online or come to us, what we're saying is that we're open and we can come and be part of people's agendas at community meetings or other groups. So that can be geographical or non-geographical.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to your first point, I think, historically we haven't tended to have a full funding bid for that 112,000 through the Joint Committee. And so part of that is about making sure that we advertise it properly and that we get quality applicants through that process. I think the other part is linking in with the national contestable funding round. We're talking about a significant increase in the waste levy, and that effectively at the moment 50 comes to council for waste minimisation activities and 50% is a contestable fund. And so working more closely with businesses, community groups, individuals on their great ideas, for the waste minimisation fund, for that contestable fund. So it may not be that we need to increase the funding to the Canterbury specific fund, but we may want to support organisations looking at national or nationally significant projects through that significantly increased fund that's available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. All right. Yanni, was this a question or?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right. I'll come back.
Just a
Yep,
question. In regards to, what's pretty clear from here is that organics and recycling, we're kind of exceeding our targets, but for the curbside collection, the waste to landfill's failing. So I'm just wondering, in terms of the inner city collection, given that that's got a kind of different system in terms of the bags, if there's any lessons that we've learnt from that around waste minimisation, particularly the red bin type stuff. So I just wondered if we'd seen less, if we had any targets for the inner city, if we'd met those or exceeded those, and if there was any lessons learned.
The scale of the inner city collection is quite minute. So we operate, the daily red bag collection and a weekly recycling bag collection. And so what we'd like to have is I guess a more balanced collection system, whereby it's just as convenient to recycle or to recover your organics as it is to put your refuse out for collection, because at the moment we have a system that heavily favours putting refuse out for collection. So that's, I guess the information that we're going to work on in terms of building a better system that can capture and therefore divert more material. I don't know that we have specific data on that red bag and yellow bag, as it were, material.
Right, so we don't have any targets for the central city at the moment?
No.
Okay. So would we be able to ask for some sort of way in which we measure that or monitor it so we can improve it?
Yeah, I think the really difficult thing is understanding the growth forecast for the central city. We've got projects like the 8 8011, which is 20,000 residents in the central city. So if we get that number of residents, we're obviously going to have a recovery system that can meet that population base. And so I think once we have the options presented through this piece of work that's underway at the moment, we can start to set some targets. It's just that we don't know what our capacity to recover materials is until we select a system.
And I just wondered if any thoughts gone into urban design in terms of waste recycling and organics collection, in terms of a number of the consents that we get for multi-unit dwellings tend to often not have the appropriate adequate space for the 3-bin system. And I just wonder whether we've got any work streams looking at what that does and what we might do to improve.
Yeah, so the same work program, this piece of work around the inner city, is looking at, I guess, future population growth, but it's also looking at our existing developments and the potential to service those existing developments, particularly ones that fall outside of council's system because of the way they were designed. So we've kind of asked the consultants to come up with something that would enable council to service both existing and future developments.
So in terms of like the 6-storey tower blocks now in the suburbs, is that able to kind of consider, on a same sort of principled basis, if you've got higher density, less space, what systems could be looked at?
And looking at something other than 3 bins for each unit.
Yeah.
Because 3 bins for each unit is a lot of handling, both for the people who are living in the units and the trucks who need to pick them up. So yes, we are looking at options for that.
Okay. And just, I guess the other kind of big question is, in terms of that curbside, the waste, where we're not meeting the target, I'm still struggling to see what you're proposing that we do different to meet that target for the red bin.
I think part of it comes from the conversation earlier around that materials stream, so understanding what is in that refuse stream and particularly what is dropped off at the resource recovery centres or at the transfer stations, I should say. Because we collect 45,000 tonnes of curbside red bin waste, and we collect 70,000 tonnes at the transfer station. So can we incentivise when people are dropping off material to drop off a recoverable item or to recycle that material rather than put it in the tip? I think that the key challenge with why we haven't met that target around curbside diversion of waste to landfill is around the changing consumption pattern. I think nationally, New Zealanders produce about 760 kilos per person of refuse to landfill. In Christchurch, it's 530. So we are actually doing quite well in that space, but it's that change in the materials that are in the red bin and the refuse stream over the last 10 years. There's been a massive growth in plastics and combined materials that we can't recycle through the system we set up for recycling. So we've grown the type of materials that make up our refuse stream through our consumption patterns. So we have to address those materials in order to drive down diversion or drive down waste to landfill.
And I guess the final question is a bit like Aaron's point. There's a lot of people with new technology, new ideas, new concepts. I'm just mindful of what we've just been through with water, where at the end of the process we're sort of told, well, you can't, go down that, even though people have made submissions. Can I just really understand that we can be as open and creative as we want based on the submissions that we receive in terms of what we might do from this? This is kind of a different than an annual plan.
Absolutely, and particularly in the action plan component where we see the need to be really agile in that action plan and indeed update it every year so that we take advantage of any new ideas, new technology, new opportunities that are opening across Christchurch, Canterbury and nationally.
So basically if someone comes up with a really great idea that we don't have in here and we hear it through the submissions, we will have the power to add it to our waste minimisation strategy.
We can add it to the action plan.
A good thing to do.
Or certainly add exploring it to the action plan.
Right, okay,
Yep.
cool.
All right, thank you. I'm keen to move this on. So James and then Melanie. James.
Kia ora, thank you for the report. It's really good and clear. My question is, I'll start with a statement. I feel, though, that this is a little bit like ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. In other words, there are products and packaging that we're having to deal with that come into our households or to our businesses. So you're saying here that the key challenge is that we need to work with central government on waste minimisation initiatives and opportunities. Is that part of it, them looking at it and saying, we shouldn't be allowing these products to come in like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly with plastics, there's a lot of work at a central government level around resin codes, so around the types of plastic that come into the country, and whether the government will make as bold a move to restrict those resin codes, which would mean that we could only, purchase and consume materials in plastics that we could recycle. I mean, that's the kind of influence that we're talking about and working in with those systems.
So that's underway now?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Melanie.
This was just about the sort of consultation. I was wondering about going out, because I hadn't really thought about it, but I've just asked our board if we can get you to come out and talk to all our residents groups, because it's probably good to get them all to come together to have good numbers. Yeah, that was all.
Thank you. Phil.
Thank you, guys. So this consultation process, if there was a company that had a particularly good idea on getting a particular part of the waste stream out of the system, this consultation process is the place to come with it and present it to you guys?
It's one place to come and present it, absolutely.
But they should do it there at least, and to you.
And to the joint committee that Councillor Chen was talking about, where they've got funding for such initiatives, when they're to turn a good idea into something that actually, can be at a production level.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we're done with questions. I'll just invite one further comment from Dawn.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think the fundamental, though, about all of what we're trying to achieve, it isn't just a one-way route. What's going to be really the changing point is how we enable our households themselves to push back. The behavioural change is the key. If we didn't take home the packaging, if we left it with the supermarket, etc., if we can persuade supermarkets, if we can persuade businesses as consumers, that will also be the fundamental trigger that will change quite a lot of things.
So we're putting a process in place here, agreeing to a special consultative procedure, adopting the documents, approving or delegating the approval of a summary of information, setting up a hearings panel, and then the final decision on this will come, Pauline, to your committee. So, Pauline, you're happy to move this. James, you're happy to second. All right, so moved and seconded. Is there any debate? Pauline, Yanni, Jimmy. Pauline. Okay. Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's very good timing. My view, to after the 7 years, the council new revise established this the Christchurch waste and minimisation plan. That's very, very crucial. Particularly based on the staff the presentation. My personal view, as a council, we need to take a lead, because based on the action plan themes, provision of leadership and innovation in the Christchurch waste sector. Because now we are all faced this challenge, changing the world, climate change impact, international cycle market, very down, all those kind of. So that's very, very crucial and very important. But as take a lead, to be a leader, I still, to how do we initiate those incentives? Because we did have existing, we did have those funding to encourage those, good idea, can feedback to us. But whether this funding is sufficient, we need to consider more kind of priority. This one is my personal view. The other combined with the education, with the communication, etc., can make it happen. The other one, consultation, is very, very crucial, important, because this waste, dumping is in relation to every person, every household. But we did have a 25% of people, the English second language. We need to encourage them more feedback to us, because there's impact to their daily life, daily living. So we need to strengthen this consultation, is my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Yanni.
Thank you. I really support getting this out for public consultation and engagement. I don't think we have all the answers as a council, but I think the community do have a really important role to play in terms of articulating where they see they can contribute. I think one reflection though is we were certainly warned at the time that we went to the 3-bin system that having a red bin would make it easier for people to put rubbish to landfill. And basically that's really what I think this strategy shows. Accepting though that actually household rubbish going to landfill is a small fraction of the main industry and commercial waste. And that's where I think you start to really, really make a difference. And I think central government now is working a lot more collaboratively hopefully with councils and communities around some of the things that we need to do around product stewardship. I know, for example, tyres is something that they've been looking at. Hopefully they can look at e-waste. And I do think, a bit like some of the issues around water, this is actually a massive problem for the country. And the more collaboration we can have, that we really be smart about the investment we put into new technology and having a consistency of approach, I think would be a lot better for us. So I think there's a number of things in here which would be really interesting to see what the public think. I certainly would encourage people to make submissions, accepting that we don't have all the solutions. But fundamentally, the other really interesting thing is people do really like the 3-bin system. In all our resident surveys, we get huge positive feedback about it. And so, I'm looking forward to looking at things like separating glass from the recyclables, looking at the commingling issue, and those sorts of creative things, which I think we are in a unique position COVID, because of COVID-19, to start thinking differently and hopefully getting the public on board with that. So I appreciate the work that staff have done on this. It isn't an easy issue. I think we've got a really good assessment, and the key thing now is to encourage people to participate in this process to get their feedback so that we can be in a better position.
Thank you. Aaron.
Yeah, I do support this going out to a consultation. I think that is really, really important. I really hope we hear from some of those people that send all those interesting and weird and wonderful emails through to us from time to time, or send us letters sometimes with drawings of intricate designs and all sorts of things. Those people need to come forward because we do need to act local. Shipping your recyclables to the other side of the world makes no sense. It's a really odd thing that we do. So yeah, you need to act locally when you're thinking globally, and some of the stuff here will need national programs. But the two bits I want to raise is, one is that rubbish is core council business, and I know not everyone agrees with that, but that's the way lots of the public, not all of the public, but a lot of them see it. That along with roading, water and sewage, that rubbish is one of our big ones, and it is. And a lot of people don't care about sorting their waste. They don't, it's just not their thing, and we're not going to retrain those people. So we always need a system that can react to those people living in our society, and they do exist. Whereas there's other people who already have zero waste households, and they're fantastic, they're exemplars of a particular lifestyle, and good on them, but they're not everyone. And so we need to cater to everyone, because we are a council who deals with everyone. And so we need systems in place that do divert that waste. And when we divert it, we should be recycling a lot more. There's a lot of items that end up in the waste stream that get dumped. And one of the big ones I'll call out, I did mention wood before, but another one, which is 8% of what goes into Cape Valley. The other one's glass. We don't recycle glass. We say we do, but we crush it up and dump it under roads. It's just not dumped in Cape Valley. It's dumped somewhere else. That's not turning it into recycled glass tiles or glass products. So we've got a long way to go, and we should always be proactive, not reactive, because it wasn't hard to tell that the world recyclable market was going to change the way it was. Maybe not as quick, but it was always going to change, and we should be ahead of the game, not behind the game. And we like to portray a clean green image in New Zealand and in Christchurch, and we have to walk that talk. And so this gives us the opportunity to do it, and let's hear from those people, because the council can't do it on their own. Some of the solutions can come from the public as well.
Thank you. James?
Oh, sorry, no, sorry.
No.
I was counting.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you had your hand up. That's all right. I appreciate the work done by staff on this, and thank you for getting these documents to this point. Certainly welcome going out to consultation, and I do look forward to hearing from the community on the matters raised. The community definitely does have a role to play here. Individual action and household responsibility actually could make a really big difference to outcomes in this space, and I think going out for consultation with these detailed documents is absolutely the right thing to do, and I welcome the feedback. Pauline, I'll come to you to close the debate.
Oh, thank you, and I do want to recognise the work the staff have put into this, and especially you, Teresa, on the back of the Section 17A review that you carried as well. Two big pieces of work. This is a really good bit of work, so thank you very much. And just remembering that when we brought the 3-bin system in, it says in here in the report that we actually diverted 65% of the waste from landfill from those 3 bins. And this plan has a focus on even further reductions and a strong motivation for a circular economy, and that's a fantastic thing. And this, together with the central government program, which has got a focus on standardised labelling, which will help, and potentially removing some materials from our country altogether, will be a really positive move. And so we've got to actually realise too that every little bit that each of us does to reduce the amount of waste we're producing really can make a difference. And I think this is what Dawn's referring to, that get everyone on board here. And I think part of that is challenging ourselves to change our shopping behaviours. I mean, most supermarkets and retail stores now have stations where we can refill our own containers with foods and a huge variety of household products, including cleaning products, shampoos, detergents, etc. So we've got to get into these new habits, like we did with taking our shopping bags along. Now take your containers along instead of buying another one. And also, I just want to mention for all the teachers out there that the City Council offers free waste minimisation programs to schools, catering from new entrants to Year 13, with a focus on sustainability. There's 4 programs. They're titled Watch Your Waste, A Waste of Time, Casting Magic with Worms, and Fertilising for the Future, which is a great program for primary school kids. Anyway, so that's a wonderful thing that the council's doing as an education facet for this program. So let's just all think carefully about our shopping habits. We've got to be leaders in this area, so we lead and we tell people what we're doing and change our behaviours again, and we can make a big difference. So I'll be supporting this today, obviously, and I hope everyone else does too, and thanks again for this work.
So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you.